Your Words Destroyed My Planet, the stream series. The edited version. Originally streamed live at twitch.tv/dualitiesdownfall. More information in the description.
Your Words Destroyed My Planet. Chapter 22. Let's start with what we know, Hal says as he paces the main room of his hive.
Always a good place to start.
Rose agrees. You nod, still shell-shocked from before. You'd called out of work, made a comment about not feeling quite right from stress, and said you'd use up some of your paid time off. Rose and Hal either already had the day off or likely called out as well. Given what happened with the shuttle launch, you don't think anyone would argue with them. We know that Karkat has been dreaming of his ancestor. How often has this been happening? Hal asks, turning to face you. The last couple of nights, I think. That's about what I remember, but it could be longer, you say helplessly. Hal has turned the standard TV display on its side and expanded it so it's a virtual whiteboard for him to write your answer down on. You had a dream about him that made you think you were getting information about him that you shouldn't have known. What was that? Hal asks. Okay, I'd had one dream before that where we were talking about this stuff, but this one was the second, and we were in my hive and talking about my quadrants in his, and he gave me some details that I don't remember hearing before. It sounded interesting, so I thought I'd go ask Disciple about it. You explain.
Quick side point is that your ancestor has been dead for over 100 years, and given the chance to haunt you and have meaningful conversation, the first thing you two discuss is relationships.
Rose says with a smile on her stupid face. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree there, Hal snorts.
Fuck you both! The point is that I went and talked to Disciple, and what she said fit in with all of that.
You snap.
You also mentioned about the lights, Rose says, a little more on topic now. Right, they've been playing up for a while, weeks now I think, but I've had the lights outside my hive flicker, I've had the ones in my office blow, the ones outside the pizza place exploded, and then we saw what happened in your hive. You list off. I checked with maintenance and they told me they've had loads of calls about this. Whatever is going on, it isn't localized to Karkat, Hal says as he writes down information about the lights. It's also a pretty classic horror movie trope with ghosts, flickering lights, and problems like that, Rose adds, and you're not sure if she's counting that as evidence or if she's disappointed that ghosts are being cliché.
We also have proof that Karkat was able to get the code that I generated. Tell me about that in detail, Hal instructs you.
I was outside Rose's hive and Silas was there. He said that what he did was probably a bit much. We walked to your place and talked. He said he'd been around since he died, but he flickers in and out. He said he was only properly conscious when I was dreaming him. He didn't know what was talking to us through the board, but he said it felt bad, so he stepped in.
You start. We'll come back to the board thing later. Tell me about getting here, Hal tells you.
We walked and I stepped through the shut door to your hive, you say as you gesture to it. I went into Solix's room, but he was in there. He was sat at his computer and Beck was there. Beck saw me and alerted Solix. Dave was also asleep in his bed.
That sounds like he was waiting for Equius to finish an appointment with his eyes. He usually does that at Jade's place, though, unless she's busy. That explains Beck being there, Hal says slowly, and you and Rose share a brief but troubled glance.
It doesn't explain why any of them were there, as the room was empty last night, Rose points out instead. Right, so Solix saw me, and he said that he knew about Hal's test, and he told me what the answer was. The way he was talking was like all of this had already happened. I think I was seeing the future somehow. He looked fitter, and he had a tattoo on his shoulder that he doesn't have now.
You explain.
Regardless of whether you actually saw the future, or whether this was some narrative device your mind used, you were still able to divine an answer that even we didn't know. One that didn't fit the criteria that Hal told you it would be. We already know that ghosts exist, so however you did it, the reasonable conclusion is that the ghost of your ancestor gave you knowledge you couldn't possibly have got otherwise, Rose says.
I think that's a pretty sound conclusion, Hal nods.
So what does this mean? You ask, slumping lower in your chair. Silence falls between the three of you as you mutually contemplate that there's not really a logical place to go from, "Fuck, Karkat is haunted!" Outlandish as that is, what the actual fuck are you meant to do with that information? Unless you're planning on branching out into a very specific kind of corporate espionage that relies on people leaving key information out for you to see at night, then you really don't know what to do now.
Circling back to the Ouija thing, that we all saw that. Blood, spooky messages, and the rest, Hal says.
Based on what Karkat said, the fact that one of the ghosts specifically selected Alternian letters and its defensiveness of Karkat, and by extension us, I think it would be reasonable to assume that the second party in that was Signless, Rose says.
Agreed,
You and Hal both say.
The question then is, who was the first one? It spoke as if it was a group of ghosts. It used we and us when it spoke,
Hal says. Does that mean a lot of ghosts work together to do that? Or is there a spokes ghost? You wonder.
Good question, but not one I can see us getting an answer to right now. Though, knowing how ghosts would select one of them to speak on everyone's behalf would be a wild insight into the afterlife. What I'm interested in is it calling us to go outside, and how much that matches up with what Solix said when Vicari died,
Hal says. Solix figured there was some conspiracy, and after getting shut out when I tried to investigate things around Vicari's death, I have to agree.
You sigh. Walk me through that whole investigation,
Hal tells you. You sigh and take the pair of them through your entire thought process. You talk about how Monodi got shut out of the investigation despite people being told it was a suit problem. You explain about what Solix saw in his autopsy report, and then Dirk and Roxy's speculation about what was wrong. You mention how you got nowhere with the sailors, but very much got the feeling that there wasn't foul play at hand. Then, of course, the whole problem with Nepeta and the fake report you got out of it. I realize that correlation isn't causation, but Karkat's dreaming Signless only happened after Dave's shuttle vanished and then reappeared, Rose says.
You think ghosts kidnapped the shuttle?
You ask skeptically.
It makes more sense for all of this to have a common cause than for two entirely unrelated, impossible things to be happening at once. Occam's razor and all.
Hal shrugs. Rose gets up and starts to pace. As she does, Hal takes the opportunity to write down more notes about what you've all discussed so far. It's a tangled web of something, that's for sure. We're taking ghosts existing as axiomatic right now. I'm not sure how much help Signless will be if what he said to Karkat is true. If he's not been conscious much before now, then he probably doesn't know much, Rose says.
If I dream about him again, I'll ask whatever I can think of, I guess.
You offer. Thank you. So let's be logical about this. If ghosts exist and can interact with us in a meaningful way, then they can in some way be quantified, observed. It also stands to reason that if this is happening across the ship, light bulbs blowing and whatnot, then other people must be experiencing this, and likely other people have before, Rose continues.
What are you thinking?
Hal asks. I'm a doc-terrorist. I'm trying to think of this from a scientific standpoint. We already conducted an experiment, a simple double-blind perception test. Could Karkat remotely find out something written down that is unobserved? And he could. If people can talk to ghosts multiple times and can conduct this kind of experiment, then it's crazy to think that this hasn't happened before. It's the first thing you do to prove it to someone, Rose says.
Right, you say slowly. So the question then is, what? Why doesn't this happen more?
Hal asks. Exactly. Either this has happened a lot before and it's kept hidden, which would fit with everything you told me about Vicari, Rose starts.
Which, and I can't stress this enough, we still don't know how he died. We know he went out there and he shouldn't have been able to take his helmet off, but he did, and all of the excuses we've got to explain things are lies.
You cut in.
Whatever happened had to have been subtle, though, because Dave was out there. It's not like some badly CGI-rendered ghost off the guy in front of Dave, or we'd have heard about it immediately,
Hal points out. I suppose we could be dealing with phenomena visible to one person but not another. Either way, that's not my point. We're looking at either a cover-up, because this has to happen reasonably regularly. It'd be absurd to think that Karkat is unique, even if the situation is very rare. Even if this happens only to one person in 100 million, only once or twice in their lifetime, that statistically is going to occur reasonably regularly, and if it's this easy to prove, we'd surely know about it, unless it's being covered up.
Rose goes on. Unless it's rarer than that, or there's some variable we're not seeing. Karkat said this only happened recently, and the shuttle incident was recent. It could be that we're dealing with some environmental factor that we're unaware of.
Hal agrees. Like what? Somnos?
You ask skeptically. Something, surely. If your ancestor's ghost has been hanging around this whole time since he was dead, then why is he suddenly now able to do this? It can't just be that you're alive and he needs biological relations to do that, because your ancestor's been around longer than you, and you're solidly into your 20s and only now getting contacted. You existing can't be the trigger for this, Hal argues.
Wait, Hal, can you look up about the lights? If they've been breaking a lot, then this could give us a timeline as to when this happened, Rose asks. What about other people reporting that they're seeing or hearing things that don't make sense? We only came to the conclusion of ghosts because I thought about doing a dumb game about my weird dreams. If I had the kind of condition Solix had, I'd assume I was having an episode. Hal can probably look over maintenance requests, but can you look over psych reports? You ask curiously, though you suspect the answer. No, that'd be private information, and we don't really flag that in any easily searchable way. But, I could look at the pharmacy stock over time. Medication that could help with anxiety, sleep, or even just general antipsychotics would be a reasonable litmus test, Rose says, and rushes to the lounge plank for her tablet. Hal sits down on the arm of the lounge plank and taps away at his screen as well. All of this leaves you sitting there like the exhausted and stressed sack of shit that you are. It would be easier if you could talk to Silas now, but seeing as you can't just pass out at will, you're kinda useless at the moment. This fits with Karkat's timeline. Everything is ramped up the last few weeks. There's loads of requests for new lights, and the maintenance people are pissed because I can't work out why. Their memo on the subject is kinda sad to read. I guess I didn't prepare for ghosts, Hal says after a bit. There's a higher uptake of antidepressants at dosages I'd put down as for anxiety, but given that we just nearly lost a shuttle full of people, I can't say that it's definitive proof of anything, Rose says, and puts her tablet down once more. Silence falls over the three of you as you all think about what you've worked out so far. There has to be something different about either now or here. Is the afterlife a physical place on a different frequency of reality, and now that we're close, it's bleeding over? Rose asks.
Maybe, but if that's the case and the captain knows from this whole conspiracy, why not go around it, or something? Hal asks, clearly frustrated.
Clearly, what we need is more information,
you say slowly. Is this going anywhere helpful? Hal asks flatly.
Fuck you. No, what I mean is to see if I can get information I shouldn't be able to get.
You go on.
Remote viewing, I think is what it's called. Rose chips in. Right, that's a good test and is interesting. It's something we can do again, but I need to go to sleep to do it, if I can even get it working again, so it doesn't do much for us now. If we're assuming that whatever happened to the shuttle was part of this, then with that and the lights, there's gotta be other unexplained phenomena that we could look into, or more people having weird dreams, I don't know, you say. Rose frowns and picks up her tablet and starts quickly typing away on her screen. You and Hal both look at her and then each other. When Rose continues doing whatever it is she's doing without explanation, you decide you'll leave her to it and ask Hal a question of your own instead. The Ouija board, then. On the one hand, we can ask questions. On the other, you say.
On the other hand, clearly powerful and angry ghosts. Besides, who's to say that they're going to answer our questions in any kind of helpful way? Besides, their command for us to go outside has already taken at least one life. Better to not talk to them. Hal answers.
pretty much what I was thinking, yeah.
You nod.
There is, Rose announces as she lays her tablet down, no information on psychological research papers on the topic of psychic powers, remote viewing, or ghosts.
Yay for proper allocation of research funding? You say uncertainly.
Quite the contrary. There's always research being done about all sorts of niche things. This year, there was a study correlating eyebrow shape to patients with narcissistic personality disorder and whether that holds between humans and trolls alike, which was, in itself, a repeat of a study done on the same topic in 2020,
Rose says bluntly. Wait, was this natural eyebrow shape, the shape they've grown them into, or whatever they presented with? I have to know.
Hal asks. Shut up. What you're saying, then, is that the absence of these topics is conspicuous, you say. Precisely that. What is even more suspicious is that prior to the Earth's destruction, there was research into this sort of thing, and suddenly now there's nothing. So it's not as if there isn't precedent, and its absence is highly suspect.
Rose nods. What does that mean, then? That research about this is being denied at the highest level, or that research is being done, but it's in secret, and Rose doesn't have the kind of authorization you'd need to read it?
I wish I could talk to Mom,
Rose says quietly, instantly grabbing the attention of you and Hal. What? Mom? Why? Hal says in shock.
She was a psychologist as well as a physicist, Rose says flatly.
Yeah, but her work was all astrophysics, all about what happened to the planets. The people stuff was pretty incidental, wasn't it? I know she did some experiment near the end with Dave involved, and the fact that she put a kid in danger immediately blew up in her face, or that's what I got from the court summary, I think. That's why Dave was all weird about it, right? Him being involved split the family up and got Bro executed, though they must have had more charges than child endangerment for that. Not like it was a bad thing, but, you know. Hal shrugs.
Wait, do you not know all of the details about that? I only know things I've picked up, but I figured I didn't know everything because it's obviously personal. I assumed you Striders knew all about it, you say in surprise.
We weren't allowed in the court for that. They interviewed Dave a whole bunch about it. We were really only around for the family court stuff, severing of parental rights and everything.
Hal explains casually. That can't have given you a lot of closure, only being told the very basics, and surely that's setting Dave up to feel responsible for his family falling apart, no matter how bad it was, you protest. Me and Dave felt the same. Not a lot of closure about it.
Rose nods. Yeah, and you snuck into Bro's execution. I got in so much trouble for that. I was meant to be watching you two, and I got distracted for 10 minutes, and you were both off to Lifetime Trauma Central, Hal says, pointing a finger at her.
And I'll apologize for that when I'm sorry. Either way, Mom's work was more psychology-based than you've given it credit for. She would actually be helpful on this topic,
Rose says. How do you know?
Hal asks with a frown. Dave told me an awful lot about it. He almost never talks about what happened, but he has sometimes, so I know more than you'd think about it all. Not that I'm going to repeat it here. I was sworn to secrecy, pinky promise and all, Rose says solemnly.
Wait, sorry, your mom would be helpful about ghosts? You ask with a frown.
Well, not that exactly. She was in part studying how... It's like how we all have this cultural, psychological scar about what happened to our planets. So it's how that very charged concept affects people exposed to looking out at space and seeing if certain reactions and conditions correlate with physics things. So I imagine reporting seeing the dead, or people who died in space or were buried back on our planets and so on, would be a part of that. If nothing else, she has the astrophysics qualifications to distinguish something scientifically valid from complete nonsense, Rose explains.
Whatever happened to the shuttle would have been entirely in her wheelhouse. Me, Dirk, and Roxy were talking about possibly hacking into files to get her research on it, but we weren't sure we'd know enough to understand it. Then, when Dave turned up fine on the planet, the risk-reward didn't seem worth it. Also, Dad gave us the look, so, you know. Hal explains.
Ah yes, parental disapproval.
Far more weighty a motivation than massive criminal penalties, apparently. Rose picks her tablet back up and types away on it for a moment before making a drawn-out, thoughtful noise with no further explanation. After a pause, you and Hal both sarcastically repeat her own back at her at the same time, all without even meaning to synchronize it. Share with the class, Hal demands when Rose is done rolling her eyes at you both.
Mom never changed her name when she married, so finding her work is easy enough. There's papers that she's credited with being part of early on in her career that I hadn't looked into. It starts out with investigating the progression of the void and mapping its progression throughout space when, by and large, space is empty and there's not much to see it actively absorbing. The radiation from stars and things like that is a way of measuring. Rose says as she reads.
Wait, that's not psychology, though, you point out. She was in both fields, so that'd just be the astrophysics, Hal says, though you're sure that he doesn't know enough about astrophysics to be sure either.
Then, she led this one. This one is about how the edge of the void affects physical objects, but it's not so much an experiment as collecting data from sailors and people on ships who got too close, Rose says. She scrolls for a bit and seems to pause. Okay. Yeah, at the end where she's detailing areas for further research, there's noted reported phenomena on separate ships, like flickering lights, feelings of dread, extreme stress, and delusions. She's outlining that more research needs to be conducted into this to determine if this is an effect felt by people in a measurable way that could serve as an early warning that the ship is in danger, or if it's a result of knowing you're in danger and it being stress. Essentially, trying to parse out some causality from the correlation. Rose paraphrases for you.
The thing with the lights fits, but I don't think we're deluded because all three of us saw the same thing. Then again, I can see her not wanting to put supernatural stuff on there, Hal says thoughtfully.
Rose frowns and taps at her screen repeatedly and then hands it to Hal. Look at that for me. There's a few papers in her early career, then a huge gap, one paper about star death that's purely astrophysics, and then nothing. Look at the file numbers in the browser navigator thing.
Rose explains, and Hal gives her a look that suggests he's about to give her shit for that. You're fully expecting him to say something about how Rose is the only one of you with a degree, a medical degree, no less, and she just came out with that line, only he pauses and also starts looking through things with a building frown.
What?
You ask. We knew some of her research was classified. Like I said, me and Dirk and Rox were gonna go steal it, but there's a lot missing here. I can see the file numbers are all wrong.
Hal agrees. So, we can't get into it? You ask.
I can, but I'm not committing a felony without at least a really good reason. At this point, we've no real idea how ghosts are happening, what happened with the shuttle, or how you're haunted and talking to your dead ancestor, Hal says flatly, and hands the tablet back to Rose.
I agree. We should pursue other avenues of inquiry first. I'm also not really sure what we should do about telling people. Kanaya agreed to stay here, and at the very least, I think we need to tell her why, but as for other people, I think keeping quiet would be best for now, Rose says.
You don't even know how you'd begin to tell Gamzee any of this, but you should try. He is still your Moiral, after all. In the meantime, I'll see what my dreams do, and I guess see what my ancestor says. Keep an eye out for anything else especially weird, you say. I'm making a group chat, Hal announces, without looking up from his palm husk.
I'm very glad we all have our priorities correct. What are you naming it? Rose asks.
Calm down. You can't rush genius, Hal tuts.
Certainly. What does that have to do with you, though?
Rose asks innocently. Not that I don't love watching Strider sibling bickering, trademark. Goodness knows I had a front row throughout all of high school, but I think I'm gonna go be somewhere that's not here. I should probably go talk to Gamzee, you announce as you get up, just as Hal is moving to smack Rose with a cushion off of the lounge plank. Yeah, you let yourself out.
As you wait for your train to get to your stop, you pull your palm husk out and troll Gamzee. Gamzee, are you around? I want to talk, if you've got time. Fantastic. Look, troll me back when you get this. You make your way towards your hive with frustration and irritability. You wish you had any clue about what to do now, but you don't. As you step into the hallway to your hive, you freeze when you see someone already there. It's Father. Solix's accusation about the four of them swirls around in your mind. You've no idea what he'd be doing here, right outside your hive. As you stare at him, it's pretty obvious that he doesn't look well. "What?" he murmurs to no one. There's a second's pause, and then Father straightens up and looks around at you. It seems a little rude for you to just eyeball the guy from the end of the hall, so you walk over towards him. Father's eyes flick from you to somewhere off to your side for long enough that you actually turn to look, but nothing's there. Thoroughly creeped out, you look at him again, only to find him making eye contact with you now. "What?" you ask, a little freaked out. Have you..." Father pauses as a whining noise reaches your ears. Looking up, you can see all of the lights getting brighter and brighter. Out of sheer paranoia, you look at Father to see if he's seeing this too, only the expression on his face is like he's trying to telekinetically thread a sewing needle in a sewing machine that's running several rooms away. One of his eyes is twitching slightly. Then, like nothing happened at all, the lights go back to normal, and Father's face, though it's tired, is normal too. "What the fuck was that?" you ask him. "Hey, could you get Gamzee for me? We're needed for a work thing, and I tried to get in there to get to him, but I think he's sleeping, and, Father gestures to your front door. If Gamzee's asleep, that explains why he's not answering you, and why he's not answering the door for Father. You go to open it yourself, but as your hand goes to the keypad, you feel the prickling of dread over your skin. "Ah, VODs," you conclude. That explains why Father's not ringing the bell or banging on the door. You're reasonably resistant to VODs by now. At the very least, you can realize that it's not your actual fear that you're feeling, which makes it easier to ignore. Other people aren't as experienced, and if Father's been trying to bang on the door, it may have taken a lot out of him mentally to have contact with that. That's probably why he looks so weird. But then again, there was that thing with the lights, and it's like he was staring at nothing. You pull your hand back from the door and turn to Father. "What just happened then, with the lights and with you?" you ask Father, turning away from the door to look at him properly. "The lights?" Father repeats, stalling for time. His eyes flicker from you off to the side and back to you again. A nervous tell or something? "Yeah, the lights. It keeps happening," you say, and for just a moment you profoundly feel Dave's absence. Wait, Dave. "They've been kind of screwy lately, huh?" Father says with a bland smile and a casual shrug. Father is a sailor, Gamzee is a sailor, and Dave is. No sailor would tell you shit about Vicari's death, and Solix was fully convinced that the sailors, at least as a group, were involved in whatever fuckery was going on with Vicari's death. You find it hard to believe that Dave would be able to actively hide anything big given his blatant tell of incoherent rambling and tangents under even the slightest pressure. But he could still be motivated to just not say much, especially if he doesn't know more than it's something to be kept secret. So, Dave maybe knows there is a secret, but not what or why. Gamzee, for how irresponsible he was when he was younger, grew into someone pretty tight-lipped on confidential stuff. Not that you usually press him on it. And given how crazy everything is with this, you can see him not casually bringing up fucking ghosts of all things into casual conversation. So, Father is lying to your face, but he needs Gamzee, and only you can get him right now. Technically, you have all the cards right now. You could tell Father that you know something is up, and you know he knows what it is, and if he wants Gamzee, then he's going to tell you what's going on. Except, you don't know what's going on, so Father could tell you anything, and you wouldn't know better, and then your card would be marked as someone who asks too many questions, if it isn't already. This is a battle you have to lose if you want any chance of winning in the future. "It's unnerving," you say, with a look up at the lights. "Oh, yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel that. So, could you..."
Fozzer trails off, hopefully, with a look at your door. Right. Gamzee. When you open your door and step inside, you're smacked in the face with chuckle voodoos. It's a particularly bad bout that has your skin shivering and breaking out in goosebumps. Your breath comes quick and fast, and although you can see that Gamzee is asleep on your lounge plank, you still end up glancing around the room as if someone was going to leap out and murder you. You swallow nervously, your spit suddenly thick and like it's gluing your teeth together. Gamzee? You say hoarsely as you get closer to him. Gamzee's sleeping body is sprawled out on the sofa, his legs hanging off at weird angles like he had just been sitting on the arm of it and simply keeled backwards. His face paint is smeared, and even though he's sleeping, his expression is twisted into something deeply distressed. The closer you get, the more you can make out a frightened little whine coming from him. He's having a nightmare, and you know what these bad ones tend to be about. The details vary, but the culprit is always the same. Fucking GHB. You hiss quietly. It's easier to turn fear into anger than to let it build as you try to reach Gamzee through the psychic haze. No sooner have the words left your lips than everything around you suddenly gets very, very cold. You freeze, some instinct holding you perfectly in place as you hyperventilate. Chuckle voodoos prey on your fears, and your body's expression of fear, getting shaky and breathing too fast, is par for the course. Sometimes you get a little tingly or sick from the whole fight-or-flight reflex, but you've never become cold like this, and it's never been so visual as this. You swear you can feel the room growing darker around you, the shadows cast from the light behind your furniture and possessions growing and creeping up the walls across the floor. You feel very distinctly like someone is right behind you, someone much bigger than you. You can almost feel their breath on the back of your neck, and the dark promise of teeth and agony. Logically, you know no one else should be in here, but you're so sure that someone is there that you don't dare look, don't dare move. Your own whine of fear is in awful harmony with Gamzee's as you swear everything gets darker and darker. Light flashes above you, your ceiling light jolting in its fixture and throwing searing brightness around the room. The TV snaps on, every appliance that has a display jolts into wakefulness. Panicked, you back up closer to Gamzee, too terrified to run and not willing to leave your Moirel anyway. As you look around the brightened room in fear, you can see that the shadows on the wall and the floor they're not receding. It's like they're not reacting to the light in the way that shadows clearly fucking ought to. The bulb above you flickers and splutters like it's on the edge of going out, and in the strobing light and dark of its light, you finally lunge for Gamzee and grab him. Gamzee, wake up! You yelp. Gamzee sits bolt upright, and there's some kind of snap as he grabs hold of you and looks around. You don't know if it was his back or something, but at once the room goes back to normal, like you just imagined it. Cam, what the fuck was that? You ask, your voice shaking. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to catch you with voodoos. I wasn't meant to be... Shit. Gamzee hisses as he pulls out his palm husk and sees the screen. I don't care about the voodoos. What was that? You ask desperately. Just trust me, Gamzee says in a rush and kisses your forehead as his free hand paps your face and scrambles your objections and demands to know what the fuck long enough for him to be out the door and gone again already. That leaves you alone on your lounge plank in your apparent nightmare hive. No way are you staying here now. You scramble to your feet and leave your hive as well. Gamzee and Fozzer are already gone from the hallway outside. They are definitely in this together, which means Gamzee is absolutely lying to you. Something sick settles in the pit of your stomach, and you try to ignore it as you hurry back to the Strider hive. When you arrive, it's Kanaya who opens the door, and she looks relieved to see you, though perhaps that is largely in part to you not being one of the people inside having a very loud argument. When have I ever pulled something like this? Hal demands angrily. I would expect this from Rose and June. Dirk starts. Excuse me? Rose snaps. Okay, enough pointing fingers, but come on. Not only can you not expect us to believe this, you can't expect us to believe that you two would ever believe this, Roxy says with a sigh. Carcat saw everything, Hal insists, pointing at you. Oh dear, Kanaya mumbles. The remaining Striders all look at you, and Dirk rolls his eyes. Sure, and June probably... Dirk starts. This has nothing to do with June or Jane, Hal shouts. Yeah, because they know when a joke isn't funny, unlike you who always takes things too far. Dirk shoots back. Stop it! You two always put me in the middle, Roxy shouts. You always take his side, Hal accuses her. Very funny, she's always telling me that you're right, Dirk says back meanly. Look, we tested this and Karkat passed our test. All three of us saw what we saw. Hal showed you the number of calls out for broken lights, Rose says, her voice tight. Stress affects everyone differently, but I'm not going to stand here and listen to this, Dirk says finally, and walks towards you. You step out of his way, and he leaves through the open door. Dirk, don't just... Oh, for... Ugh. I'm sorry. We're all stressed, Roxy says unhappily. Just go, Hal mutters bitterly. Roxy looks torn, but hurries after Dirk anyway. The door shuts behind her, leaving you and Kanaya standing uneasily just inside their hive. Hal, Rose says quietly, her tone sympathetic. I'm not... Why are you back here? Hal asks you, his whole body tense. You recount everything that just happened to you, your suspicion about Fazer, the sailors, everything that happened with the lights and the shadows and Gamzee's chuckle voodoos, along with his hasty exit. That sounds terrifying, Kanaya says when you're done. It was. The chuckle voodoos never help, but it's never been like that. This was a lot more like the whole thing with the Ouija board, you say. As you were talking, a little tension bled out of Rose and Hal. Neither of them look happy right now, but it at least doesn't seem as on edge as it all did during that whole argument. All the same, Hal is sat on a lounge plank with his knees pulled up to his chest and a pretty sour expression on his face as Rose stands restlessly, shifting from foot to foot. You really think Dave's caught up in all this? Hal asks quietly. I can buy that to an extent. If there's some phenomena that we'd attribute to a stereotypical haunting, I can see there being a kind of ban on talking about that kind of thing. I'd be surprised if he believed in it, though, but maybe other sailors know more than he does, Rose says. And sailors tend to be superstitious anyway. I can see him keeping quiet about something that he thinks is just superstition rather than genuinely supernatural, Kanaya adds. Yeah, okay, but what happened in your hive is way beyond that, and the shadow thing, that's new, right? Hal asks. Did it happen with your seance? Kanaya asks. Wait, quick side question. What's your view on all of this? You ask Kanaya, turning to look at her. Kanaya seems to consider her answer for a moment before speaking. It's not something I'd ever seen for myself. I knew that Aradia and Solix had their abilities, but I viewed the supernatural plane as separate to our own, without any ability to influence us. I thought that seeing ghosts or hearing them was just a way of connecting to something else. In this reality, I thought all instances of spirits and seances were either hoaxes or just unusual psychology. But all that being said, Rose told me what happened, and she's never deceived me before, so I believe her. Even more so with you and Hal confirming everything. Certainly, I would believe it more if I saw it with my own eyes, but I can see no reason for the three of you to make up this kind of lie, and I lose nothing by believing you, Kanaya explains. Wish everyone felt that way, Hal mutters bitterly. Right, well, thanks, but no, I don't think I noticed shadows being weird before. That seems new to me, you say, returning your focus to the Striders. If you were wanting to stay here, then Solix's room is still available. It's not as if he's using it right now, and I'm sure if anyone had to be all over his things, he'd prefer you rather than me and Kanaya, Rose says, and you have to agree with that. Who knows how Dave will feel about Rose and Kanaya sleeping in his bed, but that's firmly not your problem. You don't go back to your hive after that, and you don't hear anything from Gamzee either. When it comes time to sleep, you're uneasy, to say the very least. After much tossing and turning, you end up just sprawled out on your back, hazily staring at the dark ceiling. A feeling of otherness creeps over you, very slowly, so at first you don't notice it. When you do feel it, however, you try to move and are instantly terrified to find that you can't move a muscle. All you can do is stare up at the ceiling in a panic.
"Oh, you're kind of halfway,"
a strange voice says, and if you could, you'd jump at the face that comes into view above you. It's white. Not, the person isn't Caucasian or anything, but actually like hex code that's all F's kind of white. The face is perfectly round as well, with black little eyes and a small mouth. It reaches out a hand that's stick-thin, almost like a child's drawing, and then, without any warning, just smacks you in the face. You're suddenly able to move, and you scramble upright, only to gawk at your body on the bed. You're sleeping with your mouth slightly open and snoring a little with each breath. The strange creature is kneeling on your bed and looks up from your body and up to you.
"Hey, sorry, I know the whole sleep paralysis thing sucks. I think I got here a little too early. You weren't properly dreaming yet,"
it says, and laughs a little awkwardly, the gesture showing regular human-type teeth. "What the fuck?" you ask, and the creature laughs in a way that's somehow pinging you as non-threatening, despite the very alien features.
"Technically this the fuck, but anyway, hi Carcat,
The alien starts offering you... Wait. Information about this person just got into your head, and you didn't hear any words after I'm. They're reader, but they didn't say that. It's like the knowledge just got lazily copy-pasted into your think sponge. How did you just do that? You ask. Well, you don't want to say it. You know reader isn't someone who goes by it. They're they, and you're not going to be a dick about that just because they're a weird space alien that just got into your head in more ways than one.
"Ooh, good catch. We're sort of semi-psychic as a species, but because I'm not physical yet, it just kind of doesn't happen reliably, so sometimes I just forget about it. Besides, I talk to like 3 people with words, so..."
Reader shrugs. You shake your head and slide down the wall a little. "I swear this just started in the middle, but I'd like to start at the beginning, if that's okay with you."
"Got it."
Reader nods, finger guns, and winks at you. "Okay, so, aside from some kind of dork, what exactly are you?" you ask them.
"I'm a carapacian, and I object to the dork thing,"
Reader huffs. "Object all you like, I'm right. So, you're another species, basically? Not a ghost?" you ask them as you relax more. You're pretty sure they're not trying to hurt you.
See, that really depends on how you define a ghost, because yes, I'm a person, and yes, I died, but at the point in time you're at, I've not been born yet. From your point of view, I'm a spirit in the, loading screen before a game, but from my point of view, this is the prequel that's released after the initial game. Questionably dead, definitely a ghost of some kind. Time is weird."
Reader shrugs. "I somehow know more and less at once," you say helplessly.
"Let's just say that I'm a ghost then. It's technically true, and it's what a lot of other people call me, so yeah, ghost,"
they say. "Okay. Why are you here?" you ask.
"Well..."
Reader hesitates and scratches at the back of their round head.
"To put things simply, I can't be around at the same time as I'm alive, right? Or at least not for more than a blip, anyway. So, essentially, I can't exist like this when I'm born. The problem is that when you're dead or pre-alive, your memory can get a little hazy around some things, so I was never really sure exactly how much time I had left, right?"
Yeah, okay, there's a kind of sense to that," you say slowly.
"There you go. I always thought you were smart. Anyway, so the deal is that your garden variety ghost just hangs out being spooky about something until they run out of fuel, which for some of them is a long time, especially if you died in a really shitty way. Not to mention some kinds of people are really attached to the living or what's happening with their partners, kids, descendants, you name it,"
Reader explains. "Like signless?" you ask, and Reader snaps their fingers at you and nods.
"Exactly! That guy's been around off and on for as long as I've been on your ship, but this whole time he's been really unfocused. That's how they get when they run out of power. They glitch in and out of being, like an engine failing to start. They'll show up at times of mental stress or whatever they cling to and fade out a lot of the rest of the time. They explain. But things are different lately. There's all sorts of weird shit happening. The lights going on, the whole fiasco with the Ouija board. You start. That's what that was? Jeez, okay, you caused a few people a whole lot of heart strain with that. Seriously, don't talk to what's out there. Anyway, yeah, your ancestor's been kicking around for ages, and he's fading away, but stuff has been weird lately. There's this big, let's say, a storm of stuff outside that's gaining on us, and all those ghosts who'd just normally be fading in and out are awake and freaking out. Only, he's taking a particular interest in you. He's getting attached, Reader says sharply. Is that bad? You ask warily. Reader opens their mouth, and it's like they can't bring words to what they want to express, so instead they just reach out to you. Their delicate hand touches yours, and you're flooded with emotion, a sense of belonging, of hope, of potential. But there's a sadness to it as well, a loss of something that could have been. They pull their hand back and sit in silence for a few moments. For him, if he runs out of power, he'll just go. Go wherever people go after, they say. No, you say quietly. You've only just started to work out how to talk to him and who he could really have been, and for you to lose him so soon seems unfair, and he was clearly still in pain from his past, pain you could help him with. If Signless has to pass on, then at least you could help him enough that he could do it peacefully. His death was anything but, so it's monumentally unfair for him to cease to exist, still so troubled. As your thoughts turn to Signless and his situation, he fades into view. Like an image layer at 2% opacity, he's almost nothing to the dark background of Solix's room, but he is there. Out of instinct, you scramble over to reach for him. You make contact and crumple to the floor, feeling as winded as if someone had just punched you in the gut. Karkat! Signless gasps, his hand suddenly on you as he pulls you up. You woozily rest your head on his shoulder, and when you pull back, you're face to face with him, looking every bit as real as you are. Turning to look at Reader, their expression is complicated, to say the least. Impressive for someone without the same kind of face as you. I have a lot to tell you and not a lot of time to tell you in, they say finally. How? What? Signless says in shock. Good places to start, I guess. Reader sighs. Explain, you tell them. It takes Reader a moment, but then they start to explain, sat on the edge of your borrowed bed, facing you and the ghost of your ancestor, all while your sleeping self snores behind them. The universe is made up of the light and the dark. You can reduce these to lots of things, but not to morality. It's not that sort of thing. When you think about it, the universe is crazy, and the way we interpret it seems kind of slapped together hastily at best. All three of our species crawled out of the primordial ooze or something and evolved consciousness, and that's crazy. You get it in different languages, too. In Alternian, you talk about the future as if it's ahead of you, as if you're walking from the known past into the possible future. But in Dursite, they talk about the past being beneath you and the foundation that you walk on because it's stuff that happened to you. It's known and concrete. Reader explains. What we know is that the universe has this light and this darkness to it, and there's this thing, the void. It too has a light and a darkness to it, but in the sense that I'm not explaining this well. Let me try again. Reader says with a shake of their head. I have questions if that would be helpful, but if you'd rather be uninterrupted, Signless says slowly. Let me just try again. There are two kinds of people, light people and dark people, and I don't mean that like how carapacians are. I'm just realizing now that you don't get that joke, but you will. Anyway, light people focus on the future, and dark people focus on the past. Obviously, there's degrees to it, it's a spectrum, all that stuff, but it's light and dark. You're either a past person or a future person. Reader explains. How do you know what someone is? You ask. A few ways. Past people focus on their past a lot. They're the type of people who don't worry a lot about something that's coming up, but they'll worry about something that's happened, like once they've handed the test in where the answer's right. They explain. Oh, that'd be me then, you'd say glumly. What? No, Reader says flatly. But, you start. I know you're not a past person, because if you were, everything I said would be unintelligible to you. You'd literally hear gibberish. You're future, Reader says emphatically. But I'm always mad about things I've done in the past, you point out. I'm like that too, or not meeting the standards that you've set. Silas agrees. Or going over things I've done and how they should have gone if I'd done them right, and everything I could be doing now if I hadn't screwed up, you add. Oh, yes, that. Silas nods emphatically. I'm getting the feeling I shouldn't have phrased this as a worry. It looks like you two worry a lot. Look, a past person will look at an event that happened and think about how they've always done this thing, or wonder what people thought about them then, or try to pinpoint the moment it went wrong. They trace things back in time. Future people have this idea about who they want to be in the future, or how they want things to be, and they tend to plan ahead. Even if they don't know all of the details, they know the destination. If they think about something that's happened and wish it was different, it's because it altered their future path, that it closed off an avenue for their future self or their future destination. They're that much further from their goal or their ideal self. Reader tells you both. Silas looks as uncomfortably called out as you feel. Fuck future me. He's always supposed to be better, and then I get there and it's just this asshole all over again. You say bitterly as you gesture to yourself. You really should be kinder to yourself, Silas reminds you, his expression sad. I will be, when I deserve it, you snap. Forget having issues, you've got volumes, Reader snorts. What about me? There's certainly traits that I share with Karkat and things that were true when I was alive, but ever since I died, all I can do is watch the present and agonize about the past. I go over everything that I did and try to pick out where I could have changed things so I didn't end up like this, Silas says helplessly. With ghosts it can be a little harder to tell, but the fact that you're Karkats means that you're future as well. The pairs always match. But, like you said, you tend to think about the past if you're someone who's already died, as opposed to me, who's just not born yet. But, again, light-oriented ghosts tend to do things like stick around to watch their loved ones or their descendants so they can be sure that their future is going to be okay. It's being invested in the progression of something, rather than holding on to a past certainty. Which brings me to the topic of other ghosts, Reader says grimly. The Grand High Blood, Silas says darkly. Wait, Gamzee's ancestor? You squawk. Aside from the fact that that monster was partly responsible for the manhunt that led to my death, he was also looming over you like he wanted to rip you apart with his teeth. I had to do something, Silas insists. All that light was you, you say in quiet realization. And you nearly burned yourself out doing it. GHB is a tethered ghost, same as you are now. He draws his power from the living person he's attached to, but before you were attached to Karkat, you would have just burned clean out. Regular ghosts just cannot square up against tethered ones, especially as the two dark ones on our ship have a nasty habit of destroying ghosts that they find for fun, Reader says with a shudder. What do you mean by attached, exactly? You ask, looking at you in Silas. There's nothing actually connecting you. Right, so there's a lot of controversy about this. What we know for sure is that sometimes ghosts become attached to people, and they become a connection between the living and the balance of light and dark out in the whole universe, not to mention with other ghosts too. It's a semi-symbiotic thing. We're incentivized to keep the people we're attached to alive because their life force keeps us existing and gives us the power we have. As for them, they're able to do incredible things that they couldn't before, and in theory, they have a bodyguard against the void. As for how it happens, that's the controversial part, Reader explains. So I'm keeping Signless, well, not alive, but here, you ask. Does it hurt? I never wanted to hurt you, Signless asks in horror. No, I feel fine. I didn't want you to go when you were so hurt. I wanted to help you, you insist. Karkat? Signless whispers, looking genuinely touched. See, this is more what I'm talking about, Reader says as they gesture to you both. There was a mutual need there. You were already connected from being related, which tends to pull people together, and you willingly took him in, even if you didn't know what you were doing. With others, there's a time loop kind of thing. They're your ghost for a while, and when you're dead, you'll be theirs. It's predestined, but that's not always the case. With a lot of people, there's a traumatic thing that sparks it. Seeing someone die in a horrific enough way that their ghost comes back strong, they don't want to die, and either you want to help, or the mental wound of seeing that gives them an in. It's also easier to deliberately traumatize and kill people to make it more likely that you get a haunted pair like that, so it's been studied more, Reader says with a wince. So GHB is haunting Gamzee? That bastard! Like, what he did to him when he was alive wasn't bad enough. That's not fair! You yell, stamping your foot on the floor in fury. On the bed, your sleeping body's leg twitches, and you murmur in your sleep, rolling over with a frown on your face. Be very careful about that. I don't have long to talk to you, I don't think, and if you wake up, we're all fucked. Reader hisses. Is he aware of GHB, like Karkat is of me now? Signless asks. More than aware. He sees him when he's awake, too, same as Karkat will with you when he wakes up. He's a balancer now, and that's what I need to talk to you about, Reader says. He never said anything. How could he not tell me this? You whisper. That's a problem for later, but listen to me. You're a balancer. I told you about this balance of past and future in the universe. Well, they counteract each other. When things get too unsettled, one side or the other, everything gets really bad. For one, it calls the void itself to you faster, which puts you in real danger of just being obliterated like our planets were. For another, it supercharges all sorts of supernatural shit. People start losing it, all bad things. The job of a balancer is to keep the ship as close to neutral as possible. Regular people don't tend to affect it much until things get off kilter, and then it can get out of control. Like how each snowflake isn't dangerous, but a goddamn avalanche is. Right now we're in a total shitstorm of light-based future shit, and it's already taken out other ships and completely screwed with the launch of the shuttles. We're in real trouble, they say emphatically. That certainly explains what's suddenly gone awry, that all this shit on the ship has been happening. Fazzer is my balancer. I'm tied to him. I couldn't remember exactly when I was born. Details are hazy, but the more off balance we get, the more I can see, and Fazzer has almost no time left at all, which means that GHB will have full control of the ship, they say darkly. Sorry, you said he was a dark past type? Wouldn't him doing whatever he does be beneficial if we're trying to go the other way? Signless asks. Reader rubs their temples, you suppose, and sighs. If GHB was being helpful, then yes. Balancers are easily able to call on their own element. Me and Fazzer can make things lighter without any problems. We have a limited ability to destroy or bury our own element, but not nearly enough. Gamzee has been making GHB pull dark, but his ability to control him isn't great. Say what you will about the other guy, he at least has a greater sense of self-preservation. The thing is, GHB knows that he survives long into me being alive, because when I first woke up back here in the past, I recognized him. So, as far as he's concerned, he's happy to let the ship fall into chaos and insanity because it's interesting and fun for him, and no one else is here to stop him. Fazzer doesn't have much time left, which means I won't be here much longer either. You need to keep pushing the light back as much as you can, and make goddamn sure that GHB and Gamzee don't know it's you. You don't know enough about how to protect yourself yet, and even if GHB can't kill you, he can still shove you out of action for a while, and that's not a risk we need right now. That man is a fucking psychopath, Reader says urgently. I definitely believe you there, but I don't know how to do any of that. Why is it just you and him? That seems hugely dangerous, Silas asks. No, they said about other people. They're on the mission, right? The sailors seem to be all over this conspiracy. That's what took Vicari out, isn't it? The light? That's what the board said. You ask. Yeah, exactly. When it gets strong enough, it can pick out vulnerable people like that, warp reality to steal their souls or their whole living bodies. Also, yeah, we do have 2 other balancers, another light and another dark, but they're too far away to help, so it's just us, so you've got to hang on until they get back. Reader says desperately. Your person, your balancer is Fazer, you say slowly. Yes, but they start. The 4 of them. You saw them together and couldn't work out why. Fazer's been around Gamzee for no reason that you could work out, which means... Aradia and Dave, they're the other 2. They're away on the mission. You whisper. How? I mean, yes, but how did you know? Actually, never mind. It doesn't matter how. They can't help you now. You need to listen to me. You'll be able to see ghosts now, but GHB especially. You cannot react to anything he does unless it's something obviously physical, like breaking a light bulb. Just try to avoid him. The sailors and the people who know about this have tattoos that glow. There's only one guy who doesn't. He had a bad reaction when Dave inked him, and it just scarred up. Reader starts. The barman, the one who got weird about my questions about Vicari. What was his name? Gamor. His hands were scarred. You whisper. Yeah, but everyone knows about him. But if you see anyone else with a tattoo that glows, feign ignorance, because they will tell Gamzee if they think you're becoming aware of this, which means GHB will know. I'm sure he'll go looking for someone trying to change the balance, so you need to be careful if you want to limit the damage done. Reader tells you. All right, so how do we do this? Can you teach us? You keep saying that you don't have much time, but I don't get why. Silas asks. Because I've just remembered my birthday. It's tomorrow, Reader whispers. They can't be here and alive at the same time. They're going to disappear. But couldn't Fazer show us in secret? You ask desperately. When you become linked to someone like this, you're like that for life. Usually that means when a balancer dies, their ghost just fades away in seconds, so if I can't be here, Fazer can't either, Raider says softly. So we can't warn him, we can't stop it. Silas breathes, his voice muffled slightly by the way his hands are held over his mouth in horror. Don't tell him. We had a deal that if I knew, I wouldn't tell him. He's my friend, and if that's the last thing I can do for him before I see him again, I'll keep that promise, Reader says. I won't tell him then, if that's what he wants and what you want. I'm not taking that choice away from you. You promise. Reader looks up at you, their dark eyes a little misty with unshed spectral tears. They smile, a little bittersweet, but it's there. Thanks, they whisper. You reach out and touch their alien shoulder and then sit down next to them on your bed. With the balancing, we find music is helpful. It helps mark time, and with the other people who know about this, they can sort of steady up the balance and make it easier to protect them. It's kind of traditional. All cultures have song as a way of keeping time, not just keeping people in time for working to a beat, but also like mythology and history. Balancers lean on that a lot. You need to push the light away rather than pull more in. It's like trying to let go of a thought. Reader sniffles. Like a feelings jam? Helping the universe work through an unhealthy obsession with the future, or reminding someone fixated on the past about all that they still have to live for, Silas says, and you can feel the idea click in your head. That's a nice way of putting it. I should... Reader falters, their face tilting upwards as their panicked dark eyes dart about the ceiling. Sleep! They hiss at you and shove you towards your sleeping self. You fall backwards, scrambling into place in your body and just catching the last bit of Silas's foot as Reader tackles him through a wall. You close your eyes and stay still, feeling slightly dislocated from yourself in a way that you can't quite place. You don't hear anything, but you can almost hear the absence of something moving, something far too quiet. Gamzee is big. He's a big guy. He can be intimidatingly large at times, but his build is more long-limbed and wiry, even if he's got a crazy amount of strength in them. The Grand High Blood, however, is what happens to someone with that build given a long, long time to fill out. There's a myth about high bloods living longer than warm-blooded trolls, and it's mostly a myth, or rather, the disparity in life expectancy was socially driven, not biologically so. There's no reason Equius should live any longer than Aradia out of sheer biology. It gets different with fish trolls. Their metabolism is a lot slower for a start, so they tend to live longer anyway. But Gamzee's color and Feferi's both seem to have this extra stage. You're all wigglers, then infants, children. You go through your adolescent molt, and your phase into adulthood is a gradual shift over about 10 years. What some Tyrians and some purples can do, however, is something beyond that, a kind of dormant second adult molt. The last Empress was huge. Same with the Grand High Blood. Their bodies become massive, both in terms of height and sheer strength. The Empress was tall and muscular, but had thick, tough skin and the kind of body composition that keep her alive in the deepest, darkest trenches of Alternia's ocean. Her teeth came in like a shark's nightmare, and that much at least she shared with the Grand High Blood. That man was like a fucking sinister mountain. You don't think that man had a limb you could wrap your arms all the way around. He was goddamn terrifying to look at, and that was before he murdered his descendant. You're always pretty sure that the last Empress had kept him on human-run ships as a kind of sleeper agent. Only, he never did anything for the Empress at all and just did what he wanted. Capricious, you suppose. Still, he terrified you as a kid, and as you're laid out here on your bed, awake but not, you're trying to work out if he's here. He must be, right? That's why Reader ran off with Signless. But do you dare open your eyes? You strain your ears for the slightest sound, though why would a dead man breathe? You feel something move near you, though you've not got a single part of you in contact with what you can only assume is the Grand High Blood himself. You still have a sense of how close he is to you. Maybe some long-ago evolved sense. Your ancestor and your ancestor's ancestors passing on the genes that tell you that a giant angry high blood looming over you is the time to run away. Claws scrape over your chest and the slightest pressure is applied. Whatever you were a moment ago, a dream version of yourself, a projection of your soul or something, whatever it is, pops back into your sleeping body like your ear popping when you yawn. You jolt awake, your whole body lurching you upright out of reflex. Your eyes open and you see him. The Grand High Blood looming over you, one giant knee resting on your bed. His dark eyes sharpen on you, and you try to look through him. Pretend like you can't see him. You make like you're looking around this unfamiliar room and trying not to react as he leans closer with a snarl. All of your self-preservation instincts are screaming at you as you turn your back on him to reach over to grab your palm husk. You're pretending like you're checking the time, making a show of sleepily rubbing at your eyes as you do it. If anyone asked you what time it was, you couldn't say at all. Even though you're looking at it, all of your focus is on the dead man in your peripheral vision. You can't look at him. You can't let him know that you see him. Full of fear, you place your palm husk screen down on Solix's bedside table, though the glow passes through the edges of your case, and there's still a hint of light for now around the edge of it. You lay back down again, pulling your legs up close to your body like you're cold instead of terrified. You press your face into the pillow and pull the covers up to your ears like it's some wiggler logic that he can't get you if you're under your blanket. The small amount of light from your palm husk clicks off, and you force your eyes closed. The Grand High Blood moves, gets right up close to you, and snaps his teeth. He says something, but the words garble on the way into your pan, and you have no idea what it is he's saying, but right now that ignorance is probably helping you. You don't know when he leaves or how you fall back asleep, but when you jerk awake in the morning, you're alone. A desperate part of you wants this all to be a dream. Signless? You whisper, and there, you feel something. It's like the mental equivalent of when you've got a hair in your mouth and you can feel it on your tongue. There's some faint connection that wasn't there before, and you mentally feel for it, and Signless appears in the room, looking as surprised as you were. Are you okay? He asks worriedly, walking to you. It was all real, you whisper. I'm afraid so. I feel like I've put you in terrible danger, Karkat. I never meant to. When Reader took me away, they explained a little about how I can help you with this balance thing, but I feel like things would have been easier if I had just faded away and left you with a normal life, Signless says regretfully. No, I didn't want you to go. That was probably selfish of me, but I wanted... I don't know. You sigh. It seems that we're in similar positions, then. You find yourself in a circumstance where you're trying to do something incredibly difficult for the benefit of others. At least I can help you, he offers. That's different. You had a whole institutional thing to overturn. This is just... You pause. Silas looks at you curiously from his position leant against Solix's desk. No one talks about this. All this is undercover for no good goddamn reason. But, I mean, there has to be a reason, right? Why would people go through all this effort to keep something so fundamental a certain way if there wasn't a reason for it? You ask him. In my experience, people in power, keeping things a certain way, always has a reason, and those reasons are always something that should be subject to scrutiny. Or else. Signless says, his voice hard. Yeah, come on, you say, leaping to your feet. You slam your hand on the button to open the door and burst into the main room. Everyone hold the fuck up! I have news about a whole fucking conspiracy, a mouthful of yelling, and a think sponge full of ghosts! You yell as you storm into the main room. It's just me, but okay, Signless says from the other room. Hal appears to have thrown half a cup of coffee over the floor in surprise, and Rose and Kanaya are looking at you from the lounge plank with a blend of concern and alarm. Good morning? Kanaya tries. Some of us have an unpleasant history with being startled, Karkat. I would appreciate you not doing that. Rose says, her grip on her plate of toast a little tight. Oh, shit, sorry. You apologize quickly. I'm fine, don't worry about me, Hal mutters and flicks coffee off of his hand and rubs it on his jeans. So, what did you mean by all of that? Kanaya asks. Mom had a descendant, Silas whispers from your side, his expression happy but in a sad kind of way. You look back at your friends who are starting to look at you like you've lost your marbles. You need to get Dirk and Roxy here. I can prove this whole ghost thing to them beyond a shadow of a doubt, I swear. I have so much to tell you. There's been a development, but I prefer not repeating myself over and over to different groups of people, you say seriously. I'm not sure Dirk will come, Hal says bitterly. I'll back you up. Let him think he's coming here for you to apologize or something. Don't specifically say that, but let him think it, Rose suggests. I am sure you took some kind of oath against using your knowledge of the mind against people, Kanaya says, raising an eyebrow at Rose, who does not look embarrassed even a little bit. That'd be smart, but I don't think they make you promise that. How's this read to you? Hal asks, leaning over to show his palm husk to Rose. Yeah, that's the right balance between contrite but not suspiciously apologetic. Rose nods, and Hal taps at the screen. You look around the room a little uselessly. You didn't really count on waiting around like this. That worked. They're coming over. It'll be a bit, but yeah, who knows how that'll go. Hal says with a sigh. Right. You nod. Everyone's still watching you, Signless included, and you feel kind of awkward now. I kind of came in here with one type of action-based yelling energy, and now I'm kind of at a loss, you admit. You did start way up here with that, yes. Rose nods. Perhaps get dressed before the others come over?
Kanaya suggests sensibly. You nod and awkwardly retreat back to Solix's room. Silas, of course, follows you.
Are you going to tell them about me? He asks.
Yeah, they've been with me this whole time, and now I have a way of proving you're here. You can go somewhere I'm not and see things I blatantly can't. I mean, sure, I could try to work this out myself and keep it all secret, but why the hell would I? I don't know everything, and they're way smarter than me in their specialized areas. The best chance we have of working this out is together. If GHB is going to be such a problem, I need to rely on more people than myself. You tell him firmly.
That's very sensible. Other people are vital to achieving anything. I might have led my movement, but I'd be deluded to say that I did it alone. I'm glad you aren't burdened by ego where you feel you have to do things solo. That makes me very relieved, he says with a ghostly sigh of relief.
Yeah, an abundance of confidence in my abilities is not something I have to worry about.
You snort as you pick your clothes up. You can go too far the other way, you know, but I should probably give you some privacy, Silas says and drifts backwards through the wall.
You weren't about to tell him to leave. It's pretty clear he's been in your head and seen things in your memories. You've not got a lot of boundaries with him, and besides which, he's your ancestor. You might have a weird mutant body, but it's the same one he had, so it's not like he's going to care. Whatever, you're not going to turn down the opportunity for privacy. You change back into your clothes from yesterday and wonder if you're going to have to move out of living with Gamzee. Things between you were getting rough lately. It's just that once you've admitted that you're unhappy and probably not good for him, then it's kind of hard to unrealize that. You probably could have, given that you can't see yourself ending up with anyone else. Oh, sure, Solix likes you, but there's a difference between pitying someone in theory and the actual reality of it. Besides, he has feelings for Dave, and until he gets over those, that'd be hard for you. Jesus, Dave is a whole different can of worms. If what Reader said is right, then he knew about all of this all along and told no one. But what's worse is so did Gamzee. Gamzee lied to your face about nothing being wrong, kept something this huge from you. It's not even the deception that hurts the most, although that does hurt. It's the fact that he didn't trust you. Now and then he'd let you ghost over that old hurt of the trauma of Carlos's murder, but in all those times, he never let you know that the man who did it is still around haunting him. He never trusted you to help. Fuck, even if you couldn't fix the problem, you could have at least listened, have told him that whatever his ancestor said was shit and he was better than that. But he didn't trust you. If you can't trust your Moirail, then are they even your Moirail? Thinking about this is just making you miserable, so you leave Solix's block and head back out into the main room. You sit down on one of the chairs and wait, though you don't wait long at all. It's only a few minutes until the doorbell rings and Rose goes to answer it. Which is weird since she doesn't live here anymore, but you guess she did for years, so it's whatever. Dirk looks like he's been nudged into being here, and Roxy looks entirely like she did that particular bit of persuasion. The two Strider men give each other near identical looks of irritable mistrust, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better from there, so you may as well open your dumb mouth. I can prove the ghost thing. My ancestor is haunting me. He's right there, and I can see him. Test me any way you like. There's more ghosts than him as well, but I don't know how to get them here, you say flatly. Okay, I'm leaving. Dirk groans and turns around. Wait, no, really, I'll tell you anything. I'd ask Reader if I could get them here, but I don't know how to summon weird Carapacian alien ghosts. You shout after them. Roxy and Dirk screech to a stop. They look at each other, and then slowly back at you. What did you just say? Roxy asks. The ghosts? They're not my one, but yeah, their name is Reader. They're some alien species that I've never seen before. They're little, about this tall on me, all white, like pure Snow White, with these spindly arms and hands and really black eyes. They said they were a Carapacian. I think that was it. You say uneasily. He's not read in. I saw the list and none of them are. Roxy hisses. Solix was, but... Dirk hesitates and looks at you again. This test you mentioned, what about me drawing something on my tablet over here facing away from you and you telling me what it is? Roxy asks. You look at Signless and he shrugs.
I was never great at picture guessing games, but I suppose I can just look at it and tell you. If it's a reference, I might miss it, because they're alien to me, and I've been dead for a long time. I'll try, though, Signless says. Sure, just not anything too meme-based or anything. Signless is an old dead troll, so he's not gonna guess your vintage Earth shit. You warn them. Well, that seems a little insensitive to their culture, but fine, Signless says, with a roll of his eyes. Roxy backs up away from you until she's up against the wall. She checks that you've not somehow hidden any mirrors there, and then takes her tablet out. Dirk slides his glasses into his hair in case you were somehow looking at the reflection on the glass or something. To make your point, you slide down in your chair so you're looking at the ceiling, and then you shut your eyes. I'll go over there, Signless says. You give a thumbs up to the vague area his voice came from. That appears to be a bear of some kind, with either big eyes or markings around them, throwing a depiction of the sun into a trash can, Signless says slowly. Panda dunking the sun into the trash, you say flatly. Holy shit, Dirk whispers. Wait, new one, Roxy gasps, and you hear her scribbling. This is... okay, is she done? Apparently. Okay, so it's a series of lines in a grid, so there's 4 quadrants to it. The top left has 1 vertical line. The top right has 2 vertical lines, but one's longer than the other. The bottom left has 2 verticals, and the bottom right is 2 lines at a 90 degree or so, Signless explains. You frown, picture it, and then grab a cushion and throw it at Roxy's face. What did I say about your goddamn vintage memes? I'm going to come over there and tattoo that lost.jpg shit in your goddamn forehead! You snap at them both as Silas looks on bewildered. Well, that was both hysterically funny and proof that Karkat has some ability to see things that he shouldn't be able to see. Between that and knowing about the Carapacians and what they look like, I think something's happening here, Roxy says and tucks her tablet away. It looks like it, Dirk agrees with a nod. Perhaps an apology is in order, Rose suggests from the lounge plank. This whole situation is crazy, and I'm really sorry I didn't believe you right away, Hal. I know we're all stressed out about Dave, and I guess I just thought you were dealing with it weirdly, and I didn't have the space to think about it. But I should have believed you, and I'm sorry. Roxy apologizes. I get that. I thought you would have thought better of me and Rose, but yeah, I accept your apology. Hal nods. I also accept your apology, and I'm sorry things got as heated as they did yesterday, Rose says sincerely. And I'm sorry that poor Kanaya had to be around all of that. Super awkward, I'm sorry, Roxy adds. These things happen, Kanaya tells her. You all look at Dirk, even Signless does. As far as you know, he didn't see that argument, but clearly he is invested in this shit, just like you'd be if you were him. Maybe you can kill some popcorn so we can eat the ghost of popcorn later when future dramatic moments pop up. I'm sorry. Worse than that, I was wrong too, and I admit it. I was wrong, and also I am sorry, Dirk says, like it hurts to admit fault. Wow, sorry and wrong. Fuck me. Okay, sure. I wish I'd recorded that for posterity or something so I could replay it at my leisure. Hal grins. Okay, still wrong, but getting less sorry now, Dirk retorts. Well, now that everyone is either sorry, wrong, or pacified with apologies, can we get to the part where I'm fucking haunted? You demand loudly. Just to continue the train of things I don't normally say, I agree with Karkat, and he's right that we should listen to him, Dirk says dryly. Wow, fuck you, you snap. In an effort to get us back on track, how about you tell us what happened after we saw you last yesterday? Rose suggests. You nod and get to your feet. This feels like an explanation that'll require some pacing around the room as you talk. Seemingly sensing this, Roxy and Dirk take over your seat. When I went to see Gamzee after I left yesterday, I ran into Fazzer, who was being really weird, looking around me where there was nothing, though I'm guessing now he was looking at Signless. You start. You told half of them this already, but you could do with recovering it in a new context. He was looking at me. Signless confirms. Yeah, Signless says he was. Before this, I could only see Signless in my dreams. You go on. So, to clarify, you can see your ancestor right now in this room actively, at this present moment? Kanaya asks. He's right here, this tall, kinda looks, obviously he looks like me, but more like Cancre trying to pretend he's me, so somewhere in the middle, I guess. You say, as you gesture to the area Signless is standing in. So he just told you what I was drawing. Okay, cool. Roxy nods. Right, so last night I have this out-of-body dream experience or something, and this ghost shows up. Not Signless, but this alien, this Carapacian. They told me about themselves and said that they were Fazer's ghost, and they had to tell me a lot of shit in real short order. You go on. You're going to gloss over the part where you and Signless apparently became a team, because that's just more questions, and you don't have answers for that right now. They said that there's this whole light and dark, future and past balance thing to the universe. Light being future and dark being past. That the ship should be neutral or something, otherwise the void that's out in space, that ate our planets, sees us and starts coming for us. Which, I guess, explains what happened with the shuttle launch. Things apparently get screwy the closer you get to that. Vicari's death was to do with this as well. Apparently it just... I don't know. It killed him. They said that much. You go on, as you pace the room. Sort of like a yin and yang view of reality, but taken from a perspective of how sharks hunt prey with electromagnetism. It can see us if we're different from what's around us. Is that about it? Dirk asks. Sorry, we're saying that the event that destroyed our respective home planets as well as countless others is alive? Alive and actively hunting us? Like, this isn't just the big crunch or some physical feature of the universe that we don't know how to understand, but instead it's a living thing? Hal asks, before you can answer Dirk. That was the impression I got. I could be wrong, but that seemed to be what they were saying. I don't know what kind of thing it is, or how intelligent it is or anything, but they were pretty clear on the balance of the ship being an effective homing beacon for whatever it is. You say helplessly. Not helped by the Grand High Blood either, mind you. Signless adds, though only you can hear him. Right, yeah, I was getting to that. You nod. You're talking to him. Okay, go on. Rose says, as she looks at a space close to Signless, but not quite at him. Moving on. Reader said that there are balancers. Their job is to balance that whole future-past thing, and that balancers are people who are kind of haunted, I guess, by a specific ghost, which is now me and Signless. They said there's normally 4 balancers on this ship, one being Fazer himself. The problem with this is that apparently Fazer is destined to die today, and he doesn't know it, and his ghost made me promise not to say, so I don't really get a lot of instruction here. The other light balancer is Aradia, apparently, but she's all the way off on another planet, so she's no use to me. The third is Gamzee. He's got his ancestor as his ghost. You explain. Oh no, Rose whispers. Everyone looks horrified. It's not like anyone here is great friends with Gamzee, though you, Rose, and Kanaya are in his social circle, to be sure. But Carlos's murder and the Grand High Blood's execution was a very violent and horribly tragic affair. Everyone knows about it, even if they don't remember the exact name. But given that you were all in school with Gamzee, even if some of you were a fair bit older, you all knew. Everyone knows how horrifying the prospect of Gamzee being stuck with GHB is. Wait, you're telling me that Gamzee still has to see his ancestor around, like you are with Signless, and he can't tell anyone? Kanaya whispers. Yeah, about that. Apparently, there's this big group of people who do know. A lot of them sailors with tattoos in ink I can supposedly see now, though I've yet to see it. I guess they know and the other balancers do, so it's not no one, but I don't get why it can't be everyone. Reader didn't really get to explain that part. You say uneasily. It seems like that kind of silence wouldn't foster a healthy situation for Gamzee, Signless says, at the same time that several other people in the room quietly swear in horror. Reader did say that I have to try to fix things until the others get back, but that GHB seems to be fucking things up for his own sick amusement, and if he realizes that I'm trying to stop that, then he'll do something to me or Signless. They weren't clear on what, but they were really clear on me having to pretend that I couldn't see him and not let anyone know about this. You say. If only you can see him, then we should be careful to not discuss this without you present. That way there's no chance of us talking when he's there without us knowing. Kanaya says.
Wait, I can count to 4. Who's the 4th person?
Dirk asks. You look uneasily at Signless, but he clearly doesn't get why you're nervous about saying this. Instead, he just watches you, expecting you to answer. Dave. The last one's Dave. You answer him. What? No way, Rose insists firmly.
If Dave was hiding something that big, even if he knew about Gamzee, I'm sure we'd all know. There's no way he's keeping a secret like that from us. There's no way he's seeing ghosts and casually never mentioned that.
Hal adds disbelievingly. He's got the worst poker face. We'd know, Roxy insists. I'm sorry, I'm just telling you what Reader said. And aside from all of that, me and Solix saw Dave, Aradia, Gamzee, and Fozer all hanging out on multiple occasions, despite never doing social shit together. Dave and Aradia do, but not the others. Look, I don't like this any more than you do. My Moiral's been hiding the shit from me for forever, and I thought I knew him, but apparently not. You argue.
How does it work?
Dirk asks, looking at you. What? You ask.
The ghosts. Yours is your ancestor, but before you were just seeing him, and now apparently he's... what, yours somehow? Tell me how.
Dirk tells you. With Reader and Fozer, and I think they said Aradia was the same way. There's a loop kind of thing. Reader is going to be born today, so they said they were pre-haunting Fozer, and then when they're a balancer, when they're older, Fozer will be their ghost. With Gamzee, it's his ancestor, but Reader said that traumatic shit can cause it to happen when one of the two dies, so GHB was executed, so he haunts Gamzee, but I don't know why it's him haunting Gamzee and not Kurlo's haunting Gamzee, so I don't know there. Reader didn't say anything about Dave's. You explain. There's a heavy, silent moment as you all consider that Dave also has a horrible dead man in his past, just as Gamzee does. None of you want to voice that possibility, so you all stay quiet. Whether Dave is or isn't a balancer, he's not here to ask, so at least for the meantime, it's a moot point. The question is, what do we do now? Kanai asks. We can't talk to anyone else about it because we'd be putting Karkat in danger, and there's a whole group of people we can't trust as well. We don't know who they are. Whatever we do has got to be just among us, Roxy says.
Mom's research about space and the void might give us a starting place, and I'm more invested than ever in learning to understand it. I know we said we wouldn't hack into it, but if we could get everything she did, then if nothing else, her citations or mentions of other studies about the more supernatural aspect of this might help.
Hal says grimly.
I think we've got pretty good grounds for breaking our promise, yeah. If what Karkat was told is right, and as dumb as this sounds, I don't see any reason a ghost would have to lie to us, then this doesn't just affect us, it's the whole ship. If Gamzee's ghost goes out of control, we could all die.
Dirk agrees. Reader seemed pretty firm on the idea that because they remembered GHB, that means that GHB is still around, at least at the point where Reader is old enough to form memories, so he thinks he's going to be fine and doesn't care about anyone else, you say. Just because he thinks he has plot immunity doesn't mean that's the case. This ghost loop assumes that the future is set, and we don't know that's true at all. Reader could easily be a ghost from a parallel universe without having any idea that they were. The point is, we've got every reason to try to prevent this disaster and help you however we can, Roxy argues.
Right, so we're agreed.
Dirk nods.
Agreed,
Hal adds. For what it's worth, I also think that your conclusions are sound based on the evidence we have, Kanaya says. Everyone turns to look at Rose. Rose is sat on the arm of the lounge plank with her feet on the cushions. Her elbows are balanced on her knees, and her hands are pressed together, almost in prayer, except they're held to her mouth. She draws in a shaky breath, and you can see how hard her fingers are pressed to her lips, and her stare might as well set the wall on fire.
Rose?
Roxy asks quietly.
I'm trying to think,
Rose starts.
If I was Dave, why would I keep this secret? There are lots of reasons people keep secrets, because it benefits them, but I can't see this being that. There's shame, but I can't see any of this as shameful for Dave, and besides, I think he would have told me anyway if that was the case. And then I had another thought. Dave told me more about what happened to him with Mom's research than he ever told any of you, and I'm not saying that as a slight. I'm sure the three of you shared things with each other that you never did with us. But do you remember one of the most effective threats Mom used to use on us was? One that worked well on Dave? Threats against each other? Like, if I didn't do something, all three of us would be in trouble, making the rest of us police each other.
Roxy says slowly.
Right, so then if Dave was threatened or told that if he told anyone about this, then something bad would happen to any of us.
Rose trails off. That'd shut him up, but how long has he not been telling us this? It has to be recent, right? Even if it is him.
Hal says uneasily.
How long it's been, or who is, even if we have a guess about that, isn't really a helpful question here. We can ask Dave all of this when he gets back, Dirk says.
No, what is a helpful question is who threatened Dave to make him keep quiet, because when I find out, I'm going to throw them out of an airlock myself.
Rose snarls. I could have a look around the ship, see how far away from you I can get, and see if I can see anyone acting suspiciously and listen in, Signless offers.
That'd be good.
You nod. Everyone looks at you weirdly, and you hastily repeat what Signless just said, just that you think his plan for spying is good, and not Rose's vow of murder via airlock. Not that you think she's exactly in the wrong there, but still.
I think I need to try to find Reader. I need more information about how to do this thing. All they told me was about music being helpful, but I need more than that.
You say, after you've explained yourself. If Fuzzer's due to die today, I'd keep away from him just in case. You don't want whatever's happening to him to happen to you. It's one thing if his blood pusher just packs in unexpectedly. It's another if someone drops a piano out their window or something.
Hal says.
This isn't a cartoon. No one's dropping an anvil on the guy, Hal. Dirk groans. You know what I mean. Not all fatal accidents are targeted, and Karkat doesn't need to get hurt, Hal argues.
I also promised to not let him know he was going to die, so I think me walking a foot behind him all day looking for his ghost is probably going to tip him off. It doesn't mean that I can't still go to his hive stem,
you say.
You all agree that since you're the one with the unfortunately named deadline, you should go out and see if you can find Reader. You also get the impression that Rose needs to calm down a little. Not that you're sure she will, but her anger will at least cool from a red-hot blaze of heat to something forged and sharp that she can turn against the universe and slash at until she gets the answers she needs. You leave the Strider's hive stem and walk off with half an eye on the world around you and the rest of your mind on thoughts of Dave and Gamzee. You still can't believe that he didn't tell you about all of this. God, this sounds awful. You hope he was threatened into not telling you, that someone let him think that exposing the secret would harm people, because that, at least, is a reason, even if the morality of keeping someone chained to that is utterly evil. If that isn't the case, then the simple fact is that Gamzee just didn't trust you. You poured your heart out to him over and over, and you thought he'd done the same, that you'd sorted through all the things he told you, helped and healed him as best as you could, and he held this back. And for what? If it was just that he thought you'd think he was crazy, then so what? If he was mentally unwell, then your job as his Moira is to get him into suitable medical care. Gamzee never liked that, because being vulnerable with a stranger wasn't easy for him, but he still went to the mandated sessions his job required, and you tried to fill in the rest. If he thought that you wouldn't believe him, then that's still just him not trusting you.
There's no way you can be with someone who doesn't trust you. But equally, you can't break up with him right now. If he's trying to control his ancestor to save the ship, the last thing he needs is you putting pressure on him from a breakup. And even if you did break up with him, you can't tell him the real reason, can you? That'd be inviting the Grand High Blood to basically rip your head off, or whatever it is he's going to do to you or your ancestor. That's another thing you'd like more clarity on. Can ghosts interact with the real world or not? Can they harm you, or can they just harm each other? Reader seemed to specify that GHB and the other guy like to kill ghosts for fun, and based on what you've heard about Bro, that sounds about right. None of this makes sense. If the void really is alive and trying to eat you, is that so much worse to know about than it being this inescapable cosmic tide that washes your worlds away? You're living in a post-apocalyptic scenario already. Your existential dread-o-meter is pretty fucked up already, and this doesn't seem a lot more. So there must be some reason why this is the first you're hearing about it. Clearly you're not special, and clearly you can get ghosts cooperative enough to prove their existence beyond a shred of a doubt, so why has it not happened? I realize that I can't really talk to you in public, Signless says as he walks next to you. Without saying anything, you pull your palm husk from your pocket and check that it's on silent before holding it to your ear. Sure you can, you say, like you're on a call with someone. Okay, that's actually a really good idea, Signless says, clearly impressed. Thanks. I take it you haven't seen them or any of these tattoos we're looking out for? You ask him. No. Where do you think would be a good place to go to? Signless asks. His hive or mine, but since I'm avoiding him, I guess his would be better, you say, and then pull your palm husk away to look up Fozzer's address. Once upon a time, on your respective planets, you couldn't just look up a casual registry of where everyone lives as just anyone, but given that you're all on a finite ship and space is at a premium, the facility to do so is there. There's a lot of work people have had to do to keep things like stalking down because of that, but from what Terezi's told you, the crime is taken far more seriously now than it was on either Earth or Alternia before they were destroyed. Either way, the result is that you can look up Fozzer's hive without any real trouble. You travel in silence on the way there, though Signless has a look around at everyone on the train before walking back to you. I've still not seen anyone with any weird markings on them at all. Either I don't know what I'm looking for, or it's really rare, Signless says to you. You don't really know what to make of that. When you get to Fozzer's area, you walk carefully with your palm husk pressed to your ear. Maybe you should stay down here and be less conspicuous, and I can go up there and have a look myself. I can walk through walls, and you can't, Signless points out. That's a good idea. I'll wait down here for you, then. Don't take more than 5 minutes, yeah? Or else I'm gonna worry you've been caught. You tell him, without looking at him. Signless leaves, and you spend an anxious few minutes pacing about, but he's back well before 5 minutes are up, with an unhappy expression on his face. Fozzer wasn't there, nor was his ghost. I popped through a few other units as well while I was up there, and a few people were in, but none of them had weird tattoos. Signless tells you. You open your mouth to answer, only to falter when someone comes out of Fozzer's building. You can tell from the symbol on her badge that she's a sailor, even if you don't recognize her. What catches your eye, though, is a flash of light from her hand. As she walks past you with her nose in her palm husk, she tucks her hair behind one of her horns, and there, right there, there's a glowing tattoo over her knuckles of some East Alternian symbols. She walks off, and you and Signless exchange a look. You finally found one. Now that I know what the tattoos look like, I know what to warn you about, but I don't know how we're going to find Fozzer and Reader on a ship this big, Signless says unhappily. Don't you have experience with tracking people from when you were alive? You ask, quietly, looking around to be sure there's no one around you. I spent more time avoiding people trying to track me, not the other way around. Generally, if I was speaking to people, we'd just do that when we got the chance. I wasn't hunting specific people down, Signless tells you. That doesn't help you much. We could try the sailor's bar, but there's the risk of getting caught there, you say softly. Do we have any other leads? Signless asks, and you shake your head. He gestures for you to lead the way. Mentally, you try to place yourself in the ship and work out that the quickest way there is to actually cut further into the ship, cross the park since you're on the right level for it, and then go straight down on the other side. As you cut through the park, you catch sight of a group of engineers working with haste, machines digging through the impacted dirt as they try to get to a pipe below that's spraying water up into the air. The digger piles dirt and rocks higher and higher on a patchwork of tarpaulins, which are probably trying to preserve the landscaping of the park itself. You lift your palm husk to your ear and keep your eyes ahead of you as you walk. If the lights were affected, is that part of it too? You ask. Maybe. I can't say that I was aware I was having an effect on any kind of pipes, but I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility. This park itself is something incredible, though. That simulated sunlight makes me feel like I should have my cloak on, Silas says with wonder as he looks up. It's a UV light set to human standards. They put UV into most of the lights here because having none makes the humans sick, but it's weak enough that it doesn't do much to us. Apparently having some is better for our eyesight. I guess we got reflected lights from the moons on Alternia or something. It doesn't really bother trolls, but like I said, it makes humans physically and mentally sick to have none. Plus, having it this strongly in the park makes the plants grow too, so it maintains the recreational space. You explain. It's wonderful to see. Everything seems so peaceful here, Silas says softly. You guess he could have only dreamed of this when he was alive. You both don't know what to tell him about that or how you could conceivably be having a normal call on your palm husk with someone on this ship when you're talking about what is to you normal day-to-day shit. As for explaining how and why things have changed but why other stuff hasn't, well, that's a sociology essay that you're not really equipped to deal with on the fly. It's also not a regular conversation to have with someone without attracting some attention, so you just stay quiet. The trip down towards the bar makes you feel nervous. The place feels weird to you, and it doesn't help that occasionally you see someone walk in or out with those glowing tattoos. You're twitchy as you try to keep a lookout for the Grand High Blood without actively looking like you're looking for a ghost. Going inside seems like a bad idea, but you can't see Reader around at all. You're lurking around the side of a building, eyeballing the Wild Rover bar when you feel it. You've seen movies set on the sea where people have to maintain their balance under the shifting waves below their vessel. What you feel is akin to that, only your feet stay put. Maybe you could describe it more like how water is animated in cartoons, like something thick with body that pushes and pulls at you. Shadow and light stream around you, pooling around your legs and reeling you towards the bar like the tide dragging you out. Desperately, you cling to the wall and stay put. You sense, not hear because your ears aren't involved, no matter how much it feels like they are. You somehow perceive words, song, melody. It's like the air from the bar is humming with it, and in your head there are words where there wasn't before.
A young boy I was, barely out of my home. I stepped to the world with a meaning to roam.
It's not that you recognize the voice because there is no voice, your ears aren't involved, but you recognize something like the font the letters are in as they carve themselves on the inside of your think pan. It's Gansey, and then, like a drop shadow on that font, another not voice joins. Father. Somehow you know it's him singing along with Gansey. Around you, darkness gathers, washing past your frozen feet and your wide-eyed ghost of your own on the way to the bar. You're unsteady, uneven. You had already figured out why the word was balancer, but you hadn't felt it until now. There's something there, not Gamzee, but close. You can feel Gamzee pushing the words out through the ship, but there's something snarling and unwilling underneath him. That has to be the Grand High Blood, right? You're trying to think if you can feel Reader as well as Fazzer. As the next verse that you're not actually hearing comes in, it's Fazzer alone. You fail to pay attention to Fazzer's voice or looking for readers when you actually feel what Fazzer is doing. It's not like he's destroying the light or forcing it to be darker. It feels like when you're anxious about what's to come and you manage to reason yourself into something calmer. When you change from daydreaming about something to come and instead focus on what you're doing now. As the tide of light and dark drags against your legs, you sense the balance of the two shifting, at least a little. When the next part starts and Gamzee joins, it's like he's adding to his part as Fazzer is taking away. As the chorus starts to pick up again, you find yourself mumbling along in the way you can with a song you barely know. You got the tune and some of the words at least, and as you try, you feel a struck chord emanating from Silas. It's okay, Silas whispers, and you don't know if he's directing that at you or at the bicolored tide all around you. It starts to shift, soaking into you and almost evaporating a little as you try to do whatever this is. Bright light sticks to you and crawls up your skin and whispers fears into your heart. How are you supposed to do this without Father? What about when the Grand High Blood catches you? How long till the others come back? What's going to happen when you eventually talk to Gamzee again? What will he do then if you break up with him? What will you do? You scarcely hear Gamzee's dark, vaunted words as the terrifying precipice of the future drops out in front of you.
I met a fair maiden one round upon shore.
You understand now what Reader meant. This is what really scares you, all that uncertainty. You can beat yourself up about your past choices, and you do because it's easier. You'd so much rather pick at the past than turn around and face the sheer drop that is the horrifying unknown of your future. You see bits in it that you want, some version of you yet to be that could be worth something, but the path ahead is so unseen and unknown that you can barely look. As Father starts back singing, you cling to something, a more stable light than your own. The chorus returns, and it's amazing how motivating sheer terror can be, and you try to do what Father seemed to be doing, and no doubt with limited success. You try to tell yourself that you can get through this, that you'll deal with your problems when they get to you, that you're doing your best, you guess? That's the kind of thing Solix would tell you, that he'd say that no one is as hard on you as you are. Silas holds onto you and you grip his hand and try to get through the future 1 second at a time. You're just going to get through it. The things you're afraid of can fuck off until you actually have to deal with them, and you will deal with them. You've never fucked things up so badly before that you died, so you'll manage somehow. Just because you don't know how doesn't mean you won't. As you think that, some of the light seeping into you evaporates away with a hiss of glowing steam. You did it. Around you, things still feel off, feel wrong, but they feel better than they were.
May the land see your sky turn to swallow you whole, and forever forget what you stole.
As the final word passes through you, something unfreezes you and you burst from your hiding place. Terror accelerates your pace, and you run up the stairs rather than wait for an elevator at all. You need to get to the park, to get somewhere open and less claustrophobic. You definitely don't have the composure right now to hide your reactions around GHB. You just don't. When you get into the park, you stumble to a tree and lean against it, shaking from head to toe. Your panic is muting the sounds around you, from children playing to the sounds of heavy machinery ahead. Carcat, are you... Silas's voice falters, and for one awful moment you think that GHB must be right behind you. Dumbly you look, but you see Reader instead, walking up the verge of the hill to the tree you're leaning against. He thinks it was me then, I'm pretty sure, Reader says quietly. That's good. We wanted to talk to you, Silas says to them. You're too late. He's going to die, and I'm going to go away, and I don't know what that's like. I don't think I'll remember any of this for a long time, and he's my only friend, and he's going to die, Reader whispers in terror. But you're going to be born, right? You say. I'll be on this ship, and at some point he'll come back to me as my ghost, but he's my only friend. It's not that I don't like the others, but Dave and Gamzee can't understand me, and their ghosts are awful, and Damara doesn't like me much, and Aradia's fine, but Father's my only friend, Reader chokes out. Behind them, you see Father walking exhaustedly towards you, with his attention entirely on his palm husk. You get the impression that you don't have long at all. It's not just whatever's going to happen to Father. From Reader's point of view, the person that they are now is going to cease to be for a good long while. That's gotta be terrifying. He'll be back, like you said, but we can remember things for you. We can look out for you when you get here, you offer, in the hopes of being at least some continuity for them. Fuck, I wish this hadn't happened now. We could have been friends, if you wanted, and now there's no time. They sniffle. Hey, no, we can be friends, you offer them, keeping your voice low as Father passes. Really? Reader asks with a sniff. Absolutely. You have your whole life ahead of you, Silas agrees, as you nod as well. You watch as Father walks along, and when Reader's ghostly hand slips into yours, you hold the alien's hand tightly. There's a shout,
A yell from one of the workmen about pressure, other people yelling in such a way that the warning didn't get through. And then there's a bang. Below ground, a pipe explodes, bursting the ground above it open. If Fawzer hadn't been exactly where he was, he could have been fine. Even being where he was, he could have been okay if the explosion hadn't hurled him against the raw, excavated dirt. Reader's hand clenches tight against your own as Fawzer's limp body falls into the trench below, and then, all at once, the tarpaulins holding the excavated dirt slip. You could have told yourself that he was only unconscious, that he could have survived the impact and the fall into the maintenance trench, but several tons of wet and compacted dirt crashing down onto him? No. It was a split second. He was at least unconscious when he hit the dirt wall. He probably didn't feel a thing. You hope so, at least. Time slows back down to normal as you stare in horror. Reader fades away next to you, their hand slipping from yours as a ghostly tear hits your shoe and remains as the last trace of them. The stunned workmen leap into action, trying to dig Fawzer out immediately, but it's far too late. Gamzee and the other sailors are surely going to be here, and you can't stay and watch Fawzer be pulled out of his accidental grave, and so you run.